My name is Seth Christensen. This is the Got Any Cows podcast. As Jonathan LaRue says, I may not know anything about anything else, but I do know a lot about cows.
You know cows.
Perfect. Well, this is Seth Christensen with Christensen Genetics. I've got certified real rancher Jon LaRue with me, and looking forward to talking a little bit today about how this thing came to be. Jon and I run Christensen Genetics together. Jon runs point on everything related to production and running all of the cows. I run more the office end of things, but Jon and I have been working together for a long time. Jon and I were college roommates, 13 years ago now.
Yep.
Yep. And then have been running Christensen Genetics together for the last 6 years. So today on episode 4, I'd kind of be what we're looking to go over. So I guess, Jon, if you want to give us just a little bit of background on, I guess, your story, I guess going back to when we first met, and then all of what you've done with cattle since, and then how it built into what we're doing here.
Oh, great. I guess I can remember the day I met you because you were very happy to have a roommate come in that you were excited to be roommates with. You know, shortly after that, we became friends immediately. Hung out together. We cooked food a lot together.
Steak and Star Wars.
Played a lot. I wasn't going to say the name of the game. That's not going to help yourselves out any. Wrong demographic here, maybe. But yeah, Steak and Star Wars. Star Wars was a little fun game. We played a lot when we were kids, and not as much anymore, but every once in a while we still pull it out.
It's awesome.
So we would, hang out a lot there. We would talk about our plans and goals and dreams for our future. You know, what we each wanted. We both thought it'd be cool to run cows, back then. And we talked about, it'd be cool if we could run cows together someday. But we never really saw the path on how to do that, how to accomplish that.
Right.
We were both, kind of moving in different directions at that point. You had a lot of experience with cows. I didn't have as much. I was dating my wife now. You helped me propose to my wife.
True story.
You were there.
Brought the KFC bucket.
Seth was our butler and our waiter for my engagement dinner, which was amazing. Got to have a good buddy to help you with that and make sure your girl says yes to you when you ask her.
Yeah.
And Seth helped me seal the deal there. So since then we got married. We rented a apartment for the first 6 months of our marriage, and then we found a house that we wanted to buy. So we bought a house. We had about 3 acres then. And shortly after that, I talked my wife into letting me buy some cows. Our neighbor had some cows. We started out with like 3, and they were your Heinz 57 herd, as I've heard it called, like just kind of junk, cheap cows. We liked them. We had like a red one and a brown one and a black one, I think. So we had the colors there, and we fed them, and they had little baby calves, which my wife thought was just great. As she said, if you listen to episode 1, she did not grow up in the farming, ranching lifestyle at all. She grew up in the city just outside of Chicago, so it was all kind of new to her. And I had a few different jobs throughout that time. We lived in that house for about 2 years and had a couple different jobs there. And one of the jobs I ended up getting was an over-road truck driver. And she quickly learned that cows aren't fun to have when your husband's in Canada or Montana trucking cows, and I wasn't there to take care of them. So I remember one day she got real mad, called me because the cows got out, and she was there alone by herself to get them. Tore her pants on the fence, crawling through a barbed wire fence, and she was really not happy. So as we can all relate to, when cows get out, it's stressful, horrible.
Yep.
So anyways, she wasn't too excited about having cows at that point. So we sold the cows, and then we bought a house in Idaho. Wanted to come to Idaho. I like hunting. Idaho has a lot better hunting than Utah did at the time. So we bought a place in Idaho that worked good with my work. The job I had, I could stop there on my route pretty much. I drove over the road to Canada just all the time, almost every week. We were heading north and running north and south. So I could stop at home, be home every week, which was great, but I didn't like being over the road all the time. That's a hard job. Got a lot of respect for everybody that does it. Had a lot of other jobs. Got an office job in Pocatello after I quit the trucking job. Didn't love that. Came home ornery kind of every day, and great job, making good money, but didn't fit us very good at the time. And meanwhile, that house in Idaho, we bought the money. You know, we made a little money on our cows and we sold them. We were able to buy a few more acres, so we got up to 13 acres at our house in Virginia there. And you came and visited us there.
Yeah, yep.
Remember you coming to a surprise birthday party there? So
Yeah,
we were still friends, even though we lived a little further away.
Yeah.
And I bought another heifer and a steer. So we had 2 more cows, and I bought a couple horses then, and started breaking the horses and trying to do the cowboy life. You know, I grew up, you know, as a little kid doing some cow stuff and riding horses a lot, and always enjoyed it, but never had a great opportunity to really get into it. Didn't really see a path on how I could run my own cows. You know, I knew I wanted to do my own businesses, and I've had lots of ideas. I've started a couple other things that I liked, but they weren't great full-time things or things like that. So I soon got a job working for a hay farmer, and we moved over to Grace, Idaho, and was working for him for quite a while. And he taught me a lot about, you know, raising hay, and he had some ground that wasn't being used, had some mountain ground, and we ended up talking ourselves into buying some cows. So I took a big loan, and he gave me a great opportunity. That's how I was able to get into more cows, was through him, and a loan from the bank and the government, and got some cows under my ownership, and then was helping him run his cows that he bought. And that was working out pretty good for a while, but wanted to figure out how we could improve that. And you came up to help breed my cows. You know, we hired Seth here to do some AI work, and he put some embryos in and used some assessed bulls because he was doing his thing a while back. And then eventually I moved my cows down here with you, and we teamed up, and we saw the window and the opportunity that we had to work together and improve our herds together better than we could on our own. And so we sold our house up there, and we moved down here in a trailer and lived here in a trailer for a while, so that we could make it work together.
Yep.
And bring all my cows down. So
Yep.
meanwhile, I mean, I feel like I've been doing all the talking again,
good.
so we better
You're
let
good.
you fill in some of the gaps there in your timeline to that point, maybe.
Yeah, no, I think that's a good way of doing it for sure, and yeah, I think that works perfect. That gives a background from where we met all the way up to when we both threw everything into starting things here in 2018. So yeah, clear back in 2011 would have been the year I graduated high school and went to school at Utah State, and that would be where John and I ended up roommates at the old Continental apartments that don't even exist anymore. I mean, I think they've been like remodeled and rebranded like a couple, 2-3 times or whatever. I mean, anyway.
Well, you're pretty old now.
Like, yeah, it's happened. Yeah, I'm dating this. Yeah. But,
for the record, I have been asked if Seth was my dad, so for the record, he is the older looking one.
It has happened once. So for context here, for anybody that's listening and not watching on video, you know, John can grow a beard in like 2.5 minutes, and I'm generally like, I mean, I grow up patchy, sloppy, you know, like not impressive beard. And this one time, I had left on my stubble or scruff, I guess, for 2-3 days, and John was clean shaven. and yeah, we had a client come to look at buying a set of cows, and he says, so is this your son? And John just beamed with pride, clearly looking younger. You know, John is 6 years older than I am, but that day, John was the young one. John was the young one.
I'm generally the old one at the ranch here, and they give me plenty of grief for it. You know, everyone here. Our employees, you know, some of our grown employees have had people ask them if I'm their dad, and we're like, I'm like 8 years older than them, you know, but I do look old, got a lot of gray hair, but what do you do? The shaved thing, like, our wives kind of run that department on our faces, so fair. Haley loves Seth being clean shaven. My wife, I get in trouble if I shave. If I'm clean shaven, man, it's not good in the old hen house down there. So I gotta keep some growth there. I think it's just my face is probably ugly, and she doesn't want to see all of my face. You're not gonna argue with that, which thank you. But
some people grow a good beard, you know, and some don't. You know, you know, what do you do? Even back then, like when you and I were very first roommates, you know, that's I remember. I'm like, man, like you grow like a fantastic beard, and I'm like, I don't think I'd ever like even tried to grow. I think I tried maybe like lamb chops or something at some point that year, and that's like as far as I could get was like the Elvis look, because I just didn't have squat. Anyway,
that must have been before I met. I don't remember.
So this is episode 4, the facial hair. episode.
Yeah.
But yeah. So now you're all fully aware. This is John grows the better beard for sure.
Sorry, I get distracted.
Oh no, you're totally good. This is the standard day. John and I don't have any trouble killing time getting yakking, and it's been that way ever since forever. I mean, I was fresh out of high school, and like John mentioned, I mean, we'd just stay up, cook steaks, and play Star Wars, and it was awesome. It was great, you know.
So much steak. It's like steak every night.
Just all the time. Yeah, I mean, it's clearly, what else did we need? And it's like
just young bachelors.
Didn't need sides, you know. Didn't need salads. Forget that. Just throw a steak on and play some Star Wars.
Sometimes we cook some potatoes or something.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, if we were adventurous, yeah.
It was pretty much just steak.
Pretty much just steak. Yeah. So it was good, and yeah, I mean, we had a really good time, and yeah, that was when John was dating Lauren at that point in time, and so I remember, you know, spending for like weeks leading up to the proposal. I mean, John was just nailing the details, you know, and getting it figured out. Like, okay, so you're gonna do this and you're gonna do it like that. But Lauren was like suspicious.
She didn't make it easy. Like she had her list of things that she wanted.
There were some definite expectations.
Yes.
But she couldn't catch you. You know, we had to keep it all hidden. So yeah, it was, you know, we've been planning and executing like fairly involved schemes for quite some time now. You know?
Yeah,
but,
and then she's mad at me for taking so long to propose. I'm like, if you would have made it easier, it might have happened faster. But we've been happily married ever since. So
no, that was awesome. And so John and I had been roommates after my senior year of high school, and then John got married after that year there, and I left for 2 years for Nicaragua. To serve a mission for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And after spending those couple of years there, I guess I've always monkeyed with the cows, you know, growing up. That was just always had a couple of them, and then that grew into a few more and grew into a few more. And it always had the cattle. And so when I spent those 2 years in Nicaragua, I took that little group of cows and leased them out while I was gone. And then when I got home, I took that group of cows and sold them and bought some embryo donors, and then kind of built up that thing for another couple of years, and then sold that group again and bought higher end embryo donors. And so it's kind of been a slow progression, always with cattle, but then kind of evolved from just being pretty commodity type animals up towards more like unto what we do now. And it's been a consistent evolution from that point and until now. It's always been kind of how do we move forward genetically, and we've tested and tried a lot of different things. So for a couple of years after John and I were roommates, it was just kind of building up that cow herd.
I did forget about my low lines that you love so much.
Yeah, you had low lines. Low lines are my favorite cows.
Yeah. That's how I got back into cows after the bad experience my wife had. She didn't like big cows anymore.
So now I had to get little cows.
I had to get little baby tiny cows that she could, you know, they look so cute in the pasture, and you know, they weren't like, you couldn't go out and pet them, but they at least looked cute. So that's how I got back into cows after the bad experience my wife had. And then she really loved the little ones. You know, she didn't have to do a whole lot. And if they got out, like I had a job where I was home, and so I could take care of them getting out if they did or whatever. She didn't have to do much. She could just see them and love them from a distance.
Right. Yeah.
And that was great.
Yeah. You got to do what you got to do.
I brought some down here.
That's true. We did have low lines here. We did indeed. The secret's out. There have indeed been low lines here.
Yes. Seth wasn't totally in love with them as much as his wife or my wife.
Yeah. I mean, cute. When I look through my list of like breeding objectives or like quality control and whatever, like cute doesn't generally make my list, but it for sure is top of the wives' lists. Yeah. And the wives have substantial influence. So yeah,
if I didn't have low lines, I probably wouldn't be here. Yeah, so I got to give them some credit.
We'll give them credit. We'll give them their nod where it's due. So the low lines. So I'm still like going through college while John's, you know, in his first handful of years married and you know, figuring out how to do all that stuff, buying low lines, etc. Yeah. So I'm still there at school, and so I'd have been building up my cow herd and kind of figuring out embryo transfer, and I did AI. So I did some custom AI work, and that was part of kind of how I funded my college experience. That was part of how I funded the base of my cow herd. So I got to AI low line cows on multiple occasions. And like, if you think it's degrading putting your arm up a cow's butt, like, wait till you do it on your knees. You know, hence my love for low lines, like, not particularly developed, you know. But anyway, so that's the story there, the low line story. But yeah, did a lot of custom AI and stuff, and that kind of, you know, kept building things. And then coming out of college, coming out of Utah State, just like John mentioned, you know, having an opportunity that came his way to kind of build out his herd. I had some gentlemen come to me that were looking for looking to invest in cattle is what they were looking to do at the time. And so that let me scale my little herd pretty quickly. And then that kind of led to that point where both John and I had, some decent sized little herds. We'd have had, 150-ish each, 150, 200, somewhere in that ballpark. But neither one of us felt like maybe we could do as much with those groups independently or in the settings they were in as what we could do together. So John and I had maintained contact the whole way through, always just been friends, call up here or there. And sometimes, get in touch consistently. Other times it'd be years, but then, give each other a holler and just like your roommates, and so John and I have always been really good friends that way. And we got talking about where we were at with our cows, and that John had this set and it wasn't, it wasn't as good as it could be maybe.
Yeah.
And I had a set and same type deal, I was grateful for it, grateful for the opportunity and to be where I was at with that group, but maybe not all of what it could be, And so John and I got talking and thought, hey, if we throw these in together, bring them all to one spot. I had the opportunity come up to buy the place here in West. Then I would say, hey, if we just throw them all in there together, and if we can put John, running the cows, and if I can keep enough running on the sales end of stuff, on the marketing end of stuff to make the thing cash flow, I think we can make it go. And so that's what we did. And, initially coming down in 18, when we brought those two herds in, we had way too many cows and not nearly enough capital behind us, not nearly enough feed, not nearly enough pasture. But both John and I just threw like everything at, it wasn't like a come in and like, oh yeah, this is going to be, short hours and great pay and, everything's going to go sunshine and roses. And, it was especially that first year. Like, holy smokes. Like that was a lot.
Yeah. No, if I just listened to episode 2 a little while ago.
Yeah.
And the lessons that we talk about in episode 2 are what we learned during that time. Like too many cows, not enough grass, don't overgraze.
Right.
Those are the lessons we learned during that window.
Right, right. And I always remember thinking, like, in that window, like, people we'd talk about how many cows we had, and we had this big old pile of cows. At our peak, there were, like, 700 animals we were running, and it was a mess. Just on fire all the time, always out of feed, always out of grass, always out of cash, and it was, me and John and our wives, running around like chickens with our heads cut off, just trying to stay ahead of it, and just the stress of it, It wasn't a scenario where it's like, oh boy, we're making a pile of money and life's easy, It was a man alive. Like, we're gonna have to just, neither one of us pulled a paycheck, neither one of us took any time off.
Yeah, we
threw everything.
We invested everything. We had saved some money from how, like when we sold our house, we lived off of our savings for a while until we pretty much got down to nothing.
Right.
And luckily we started turning things around. But we definitely invested everything that we had, all of our time, energy, money, everything.
Right.
And we're just young couples. You know, when we moved down here, we just found out that Lauren was pregnant with Lydia, and so we had a baby coming.
Yep.
All these cows that we're trying to figure out, like we didn't have the ground for them to go to. We were still buying fence, like our tent fence. We didn't have enough tent fence to fence everything in. We would literally move the cows down the road and then try to build the fence around them before they left wherever they were at. It was just nuts. Like, do not recommend doing that.
No.
So don't do what we did
not the way
at that time.
No, and I just look back at that when I remember specifically, so like spring of 19. So John and I brought all the animals in. Both of us moved here to the ranch in Weston, fall of 18. So then we had basically a winter feeding period, and then it was spring of 19. And I told the story previously about, just being completely out of feed. But then I remember in that same spring having cattle turned out and literally just trying to like go watch a movie, like at the movie theater in town, which is 10 minutes from here. Like wanted to watch one show one time. Cause both John and I working around the clock, like all day, all night, like just trying to keep ahead of stuff and trying to keep stuff sold quick enough to fund anything and trying to keep everything fed, but mostly just trying to keep them fed. John and I ended up spending together, all the time just keeping the cows fed and trying to watch a show. We made it like an hour into Avengers. What was that one? That would have been the Infinity War. And get a phone call that cows are, and it's dark. And and everything's muddy because we had to turn all the cows out too early because they're out of feed. Yeah. And I just remember, chasing cows, and it was dark and it was muddy and there was no feed anywhere. And then I remember it would have been in April that my wife and I always try to go take like an anniversary trip of some kind, just something like, we'll typically just stay right close, but go overnight somewhere. go spend just a hair of time together for our anniversary. And so we did that. And I remember like just getting down there and just like having like the shakes like in my hands. Like I couldn't hold steady, like, I mean, and we're like in our 20s, and like there's not any physical reason that should be happening, but just the sheer stress. I mean, to the point that it's like, I don't know, like, how are we going to pay for this? How are we going to feed these cows? How are we going to keep this stuff going? And anyway, so it was hard. And so I think, those are some of the things, like, I'm sure we've all heard, as stuff does get going, we're at a stage now. It's not like we're at, boy, we've just magically arrived and everything's perfect and everything's all exactly how we'd ever hoped. But we're a long ways ahead of where we were, 5 and 6 years ago. And sometimes you have people say, oh, well, it must be nice, or like as if it just kind of happened.
Yeah.
And like, I don't think they maybe grasp at times. Like there were some pretty serious blood, sweat, and tears thrown at it, especially in that front year or two, and it continues to be. It's not an easy thing to do, but it has gotten easier, as time has gone on. So.
Yeah, we have a better idea of what we're doing now.
Right.
Still feel like we're learning all the time. There's still things to learn. And that's one thing I've learned with doing a lot of business with the people in this industry is, some of these old guys have been doing it for a long time, or the vets, like, oh yeah, we're always learning something new. Like, that's how I feel. Like, I don't feel like I'm an expert at really any of it, because there's still so much that we can learn and so much changes all the time. Like, we're still learning, we're still improving, we're still changing things. We're rearranging stuff in the barn to get layouts different, and changing fences and how we load cows. I mean, there's always ways to improve stuff, and that's helped a lot. That experience. If you don't have someone that has experience, you have to learn it the hard way, like we did.
Right.
And we definitely learned it the hard way.
Oh yeah.
So,
oh man. Yeah.
But we made it work. There were times where it's like, we didn't know if it was going to work. Like, There were definitely times where it's like, do we quit? Like,
right.
Quitting's not an option. Like, we're too invested to quit.
Or too far in.
We can't.
Yeah.
We just can't.
There's just not an option.
You wanted to sometimes.
Sure.
But there's was no way to quit. It's we can't. Like, we have to make this work. And we're going to. And both of us are determined enough that, like, we can put our head down and usually plow through everything. And we figured it out.
Right. Well, and I look back, at some of those experiences, like you and I just talked about, between when we met and then when we both, threw everything at building this company here. The fact that you did have, a broad set of different experiences, and that you've got different, background and a series of different skills that you bring to the table, whereas all of my work has always been so specialized and frankly, like, obsessive over cows for so long, that then you've kind of got the two different angles to it, where, like, you're able to be the jack of all trades, and you can, I mean, I know whatever's on fire. I'm like, I can say, hey, John, this is what's going on, or that I'm aware of. And you'll find a way to figure it out. You know what I mean? Like, I'm completely confident in that, because you've got a broad skill set, right? Yeah. And then for me to be able to be at the point, especially now, where I can just continue to stay focused, as I always have been, on the cattle, on the genetics, on legitimately making the best animals we possibly can. I feel like that's one of the things we're able to offer to our clients today that is very distinct, I guess, from most offerings in the marketplace. There's a lot of different places that somebody can go to buy cows, a lot of different places. But I feel like there's very, very, very few where multiple families have thrown everything they have at it, build it from the ground up, and this is what we do all day, every day. This isn't like I do it a little bit here or there as a hobby, or I do it a little bit in retirement, or it's fun. And there's nothing wrong with doing it that way. Don't get me wrong. I mean, there's plenty of wonderful people doing it that way. But I feel like that's something we can offer our clients, is like, look, this is not, like, failure is not an option. Like we were talking about, this will be done as well as it could possibly be done. And it's because our families are depending on that, and on us doing a good job. So,
well, and you're super humble about your knowledge and your skill with cows. Like, it's ridiculous. Like, that was probably the biggest reason that I moved, besides our friendship and stuff. Everything together, it all added up to partnering with you. But I have yet to meet a person that knows more about cattle and that is more obsessed with cows than this guy right here.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous. I just shake my head at him all the time. Like, it just happens often, where I'm just like, how in the world does anyone know cows like Seth? Like, he knows every cow out here on our ranch, every bull. Like, you pretty much, like, I've been to other ranches, and he'll just look at cows like, oh, that cow's from this, isn't it? Well, yeah. Well, like, it just blows my mind. So he's super humble about it, which is great. I really appreciate that about Seth. I'm glad he's not cocky with stuff. And if you need help learning about cows, Seth is as knowledgeable as anyone that I've met, and we've met a lot of guys now. Like, we go to bull tours. I'm going to brag about you for a minute, because you're not going to do it about yourself. But I've been to the bull stud facilities. We go, and they give you a tour guide to teach you about these bulls. And every single time I've been with Seth teaches the tour guide something that he didn't know about the bull that he's there hired to showcase and talk about and teach people about. And I'm just like, what in the world? Like, and then, I mean, even as roommates, like you had the cattle magazines back then. You would just study cows and talk about cows all the time. And everyone that knows Seth knows that's what Seth talks about is cows. When he's not wearing his black shirt, he's wearing a cow shirt. Like, Seth is just cows. Cows.
Yeah.
So, yeah, you can talk about got any cows. You know, this is the right podcast for Seth to be on and to be spearheading. Because, man, like, I don't mean to make you uncomfortable here, but really, like, you know as much about cows as anyone that I've met. And that is what gave me confidence on those bad days. I'm like, well, I don't know how we're going to make enough money to pay the bills here. But luckily, I'm working with the guy who will figure it out because he's, you know, you're well connected with lots of people. You've been doing it for a long time. And you just have the passion that I've never met anyone else with as much passion for cows and a love for cows that you have. I don't know why. I don't understand it. But it's there and it's real and it's incredible. And that's really what has kept our business going and kept us afloat is your love, knowledge, and passion for what you do with the cows. So I have grown to appreciate that very much.
No, and I appreciate it. And I'm grateful for it. And I think, you know, that's one of the things that I'm really grateful for in the work that we do is that you and I, you know, bring those different skill sets to the table. And I think it's so rare and unique, you know, to have friends be able to work together. Like Lauren's mentioned it several times. You know, a lot of people will say, boy, I don't know, you know, working with friends like that may not be the best call. But the fact that, I mean, you and I are still friends. You know what I mean? And we are still, you know, fully invested and chasing this thing and making it go. And, you know, the reason I'm able to do what I do on the genetics, the finance, the marketing, or the work I do in the office is because I know how well the cattle are being run by Jon. You know, when people will call and ask me, you know, well, you know, what about this, and this as far as, you know, which cows are where or what's going on? I'm like, I don't know, like ask Jon. Like Jon is the one that Jon knows all of it front, back, and sideways. And that's what lets me stay focused on the work that I do there. And I think that's another thing that's unique, you know, looking at what we're able to do here because of the backgrounds we have or the skill sets we have or the relationship that we have, you know, that there's trust there, right? For you and I on both sides of that deal. And I look at so many of these different places that, maybe they've got really, really neat cows, right? Or they've got a great set of genetics, but they don't have people they trust that are running the whole show all day, every day. And if there's not somebody that you can trust that's going to do a good job to run those cows, you're up a creek. It doesn't matter how good the genetics are, you know. And so if you don't have a Jon on your team, get a Jon on your team, you know, and you'll be in a better position for it, I would say, for sure.
Well, that being said, you got to have a Seth too, for us, right? Like with the genetic stuff, like you got to have an office guy. Seth gets harassed a lot, way too much. From especially from local people here, like, oh, Seth's just sitting in the office making you guys do all the work outside again, huh? I'm like, but that's where we need him though. Like we need more of him than we do of me. Like I don't bring it, you know. Like we can take care of stuff, but we got to have Seth in the office. Like that's how our business survives and provides for our families is to have you sitting in the office talking to people, helping them with their herds. If you're helping other people make money, then they're gonna help us make money too. So it goes both ways there. And you're great with helping people. Seth takes time to help everyone that calls and asks. Like he makes time to help people. And I know his phone blows up all the time. Like when he does come outside to help, you know, he's like, okay, I got to respond to my 14 calls, 30 emails, 15 text messages. Like his phone is always busy, but I'm really grateful I'm not the one taking those calls. Like I couldn't handle your job. Like I can't talk to that many people all the time. Like and answering your phone and being willing to do that. And I'm glad and grateful that you do get a time to shut your phone off too. You know, Seth's learned that he's needed to shut his phone off in the night, or else he just doesn't get a break. Like we all need breaks from what we do. Right. I can't be outside 24/7. Right. So and you can't be on the phone 24/7. Yep. We need to have life outside of this as well. But
Hey guys, this is Seth Christensen with the Got Any Cows podcast. I wanted to give you guys a personal invitation to check out our website. That's gotanycows.com. Gotanycows.com is going to take you to the Christensen Genetics website. On that website, we've got a couple of different things that I would like you to take advantage of. One of the first tabs that you'll see there across the top on the Christensen Genetics website is the podcast tab. You can find any and all of the episodes that have been released there along with full video. The next tab over would be the Learn tab. The point of everything on this tab would be to help educate somebody that maybe doesn't have cattle yet, help you prepare to be ready to own your own cows. We help people on a regular basis establish new herds, build a quality set of cattle. The Learn tab is all about being ready for cattle ownership. The next tab that you'll see on the top of the website there is the Build Your Herd tab. This is going to have our current sale inventory on it. It'll have everything from semen and embryos to females, bulls, all of the above. It's all there. There's going to be pictures there. There's going to be registration links there. There's going to be pricing there. All of the live animals on ChristensenGenetics.com come with free delivery anywhere in the continental United States included. So if you decide to purchase any of these animals, all you have to do is click the click to buy button that is included on each of those listings. That'll send an email to us. We'll send an invoice to you. Once you pay that invoice, we'll go ahead and schedule a brand inspection, a health inspection, and shipment to your ranch. And then after that, the next tab is the Run Your Ranch tab. So this would be where you can find information on what to do when you receive those animals, vaccination protocols, nutrition recommendations, calving recommendations, shipping, marketing, anything that you might need to do once you own the cattle. So the whole point of this website at large, of GotAnyCows.com, is meant to help you prepare to own cows, purchase the best cows you can possibly get, and then know what to do with them. So I'd invite you guys to take advantage of that resource. We built it for you. It's there to use. Please go ahead and visit GotAnyCows.com. Be sure to subscribe at the bottom of the page, and you'll receive updates as things are added to the site. Again, that's GotAnyCows.com, and we'll see you there. I think it's absolutely, it's clutch to just to have the people that are capable in those different roles, and that's what I look at as some of these different ranches get going, is that's the most common people that we work with, or that I work with directly in selling our cattle, quite often are building new operations. And so they might be putting together, really neat animals, but the best animals in the world, it doesn't matter at all if you don't have the right people in place, whether that's you personally doing it or whether you've got people on your team that are running those cattle in a way that that they're going to be well taken care of. Because we get comments all the time on the disposition of our animals, as far as our animals being calm, our animals being well mannered, our animals being safe to be around, being manageable. And a lot of that comes down to John is running the crew outside and isn't running them a million miles an hour, and isn't lighting everything up with a hot shot, and it isn't all hooting and hollering and yelling, and we're not putting a rope on them if we don't have to, and we're not running rodeo stock, right? We're running animals that can be safely handled for people. And so I think it's really, really crucially important just to have somebody that knows how to manage the animals in that fashion and handle them in such a way that they are functionally trained, to be good. And that's part of the work we do, on both fronts, both the management that John does, but then if we run into one that's not going to behave, she's gone. We ran into one that's not going to behave this weekend. She's gone today. She's not here. She's no longer part of the deal because we're just not going to tolerate it. Yeah. And I think, and that's a mutual respect there. If John tells me she needs to go, she needs to go.
That was because she ran into me more than we ran into her. So she made the call real easy.
That one had to go, and that's just part of the deal. And there are animals, no matter how careful you are in how you breed them and how you source them and how you select them, you'll run into some of that. But at that point, the options are either tolerate it and propagate it or eliminate it. And we're not going to monkey with that at all.
To run a good program, you need to be culling some.
Absolutely.
It's okay to get rid of cows.
Yes.
You want to get rid of the bottom end and keep improving the top.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So. Yeah. Well, and that's the same deal. I've talked, John and I have talked specifically about animals we are or aren't going to cull here. And then talking to other breeders, I think that's one of the real challenges right now in the Akaushi breed specifically would be that a lot of people are kind of looking at them like, well, just because they're Akaushi, they're great, or they need to be breeding stock, or we need to keep them, or they can't be castrated, for example. We can't make a steer out of this one because he's too good. And I think you can cull your way to quality as quickly as you can breed your way there. And now, obviously, we're a genetics supplier. Like we're going to produce the very, very best we possibly can, but we only multiply the best, and I think that's part of what makes our program unique as well. Embryo transfer is such a job, and I look at, from the time you and I first threw in cattle together and we were dealing with all of the firestorm that entailed, all the way from then till now, the evolution of all of it has centered on that science of embryo transfer. And embryo transfer is so difficult and is so fickle. And we have had the days on multiple occasions where it just does not go well at all, you know, and the success rate is so poor and it can be so frustrating. And that comes down again, you know, we talk about kind of having the two sides to the management here, having John's management of the herd and having my management on genetics and marketing. But from both angles, we both have to be willing to continue to fine tune that embryo program. And I think one of the real edges that gives us, because we have done that and we have done it year over year, and we have taken our lumps and taken our beatings and dealt with the times it's not gone well, is at this point, the only animals getting multiplied here are the top 5%. That's it. I mean, all the rest of them are not getting multiplied. They are the top 5% or they're not getting multiplied here.
Right.
And so I think that's one of the things as you look at the progression of our company over the last 6 years and where it will go over the course of the next 10, 20, 50 years, only multiplying the best and eliminating everything else. I think that's crucial, you know, as far as what'll move us forward. If you were to look at, you know, the last 6 years for you, John, as far as, I guess, different lessons learned or I guess experiences to share over that window, going from being on fire all the time, like we were just talking about, to being where at least we have enough time to sit for an hour together, you know, and record a podcast episode, right? I mean, and what, I guess, what all's happened between those 2 points in time in your mind, things that come to mind as far as the progression from then till now.
Yeah. 6 years ago, we definitely didn't have time to sit down like this together. It wasn't going to happen.
We'd have had 3 phone calls by now about 3 different groups of cattle that would be out in 3 different locations.
Yeah, and at least one of them would be from the sheriff's office,
Yes.
you know, dispatch calling us. You got cows on the highway, get there right now.
In the middle of the night, 2 a.m.
That happened. I don't even remember how many times.
A lot. Yep.
But yeah, we're way better now. A lot of that is our lessons we've learned.
Yeah. Yep.
But we also have improved our facilities quite a bit, and that's one area I'd like to touch on just a little bit.
Sure. Yeah.
Because I see a lot of guys, especially new guys, put a lot of money into their facilities first, which is great. If you got the money, do it. Like, facilities are awesome. You get a nice chute, good solid panels, good solid fences. That's great. We didn't do it that way. We didn't have the money to put money into facilities. Sure. Yep. I feel like we really invested heavily into the genetics of our cattle. Like, that's where
all the money went.
That's where all the money has went.
Yep.
I mean, our facilities, our squeeze chute was minimal. Like, we've been on minimal for a long time, you know, and we're improving. We're a lot better now than we were.
Sure.
We still have room to improve on our facilities, but our facilities aren't making us the money that our genetics are.
Right.
And our cows are. So putting money into good cows brings you back more money a lot faster than money into solid fence or some of the facilities that you can do. And I see a lot of guys do right at the beginning. And if you don't, one thing we've learned too is you don't want to cement everything in and have everything be permanent, and then it's like, oh no, the cows don't flow through there. That's probably the biggest mistake we see with these new guys is they'll build, you know, this really pretty, like, on paper it just looks awesome, you know, brand new, everything's welded steel, awesome chute, like whatever bells and whistles you want on it, all lit up, cement, drains, whatever. But then it's just a pain in the butt to get cows to flow through and work, and you're cleaning stuff all the time. So we've learned that, we want good facilities, but we want to make sure they're going to work with our facility, our place, our management first before we go to putting permanent stuff in. And we've even cemented some stuff and still made some changes here and there. But that's one thing I wouldn't get in a hurry to do, would be put in a bunch of permanent stuff that is going to be super expensive to change if you need to change and adjust stuff.
Right. Yep.
But yeah, over those 6 years, we're not anything like what we were.
No.
We've changed a ton in 6 years. You know, and we were mainly Angus base when we started. And we had a lot of commercial cows, and we had quite a few registered Angus cows, and that was our focus. And we had the low lines. You know, we've had several different breeds. We've had some Gelbvieh, I think. I mean, some
Gelbvieh, Hereford, Charolais,
just
Angus,
a whole pile
Akushi.
of different stuff. And we end up really hard on these Akushi cows. Like, they have really taken the cake for us on what they're doing. We love what they are. You know, their structure, their feet. You know, they have improvements in the breed as far as your docility, things like that. But that's what we're trying to breed and improve that breed overall.
Right.
And to see your vision on them and see where you're going. I mean, Seth is planning for the next 20, 50 years because he doesn't know how to do anything else. Like,
that's exactly right.
You know,
Seth doesn't know how to do anything else. So
he's only going to do cows. You don't have to worry about Seth leaving.
The likelihood of me deviating is 0.
No, I mean, and we had a pretty serious conversation one day, you know, in those first couple of years of like, well, we might go bankrupt. Like, and you're like, yeah, what do we do if we go bankrupt? He's like, oh, I already know. start all over again, do it over again, do my embryos over again, do cows again. Like, I'll just do it better next time if we go broke. I'm like, okay, like, good for you. I'm probably going to get a real job or get something easier to do. I don't know. But I mean, I had other things that maybe I could do, but yeah, I mean, you're in it for the long haul. Makes me feel like, like I want to be here for the long haul too.
Right.
We've dedicated everything we have to making this go, making this work for our families. We love the lifestyle, love what it's doing for us.
For sure. For sure.
Definitely wasn't easy to get to this point.
No, and I think, you're talking about, new guys and some of the things that'll happen, like with facilities. And I think one of the other things that I've seen, talking to people on, I guess on my end of it per se, is as far as the genetics, I've seen people definitely get ahead of themselves with embryo transfer. And that's one that, I mean, I don't mean to say, hey, we're the only people that can do it. Like, don't get me wrong. I think it's great if people can learn it, can figure it out, can dial it in, can get a system.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. But I have seen people, jump into, in Akiushi especially, but into registered cattle period, and then just go whole hog. I'm like, wow, I can make, this cross and this cross and this cross and this cross, and all of a sudden they've got 600 embryos and no recips. And the only recips they do have are back crap crazy.
Yeah.
And their success rate's 15 to 20% every time. And they're just frustrated as sin because all they've done is rack up a humongous bill for making all these embryos. And now they've got blessed few cows to show for it. The ones they do have are kind of just so anyway because they didn't build off a good enough donor and they just breaded everything under the sun for their flush program. So I think, one thing, I guess I'm looking at our last 6 years and then maybe projecting, for other people, if they were in that window, you know what I mean, or kind of starting out or getting rolling. And I think to number one, spend the money up front to have something really to build from, something that's really, really good, rather than multiplying a bunch of junk, right? So get something really good up front, and then just realize that it's okay that it takes a little bit of time. Like, you don't need to buy, shiny object syndrome is definitely a thing when it comes to breeding stock and buying every single one. Oh, like, this one's cool, this one's, and then all of a sudden you got a bunch of cows. Like, what am I even doing with these? Like, I don't have a direction. I don't know how I want to market them. I'm not willing to cut any of the calves, like we're talking about with castrating bulls, because they're high end animals, they're well bred or whatever. I think spend the money up front to get something really good, and then realize that it doesn't take that many years before one is 2, then 4, then 8, then 16, then 32. If you were just all you're doing is breeding them and holding back daughters, right? Doesn't take very long to build a pretty significant number of cows. And I think it absolutely pays to invest in quality. Because, if you look at the expenses for our business, the number one expense is feed, right? And it's not close. Yeah. And so if you're going to spend all that money on feed, it costs the same whether I feed really, really poor cattle, and like we did before, as far as way too many, as it does to spend that feed money and then the associated labor, facilities, everything else on really good animals, and only multiply those animals that are really worth multiplying, and then just don't get ahead of yourselves. I'm not saying that you can't engage in ET, but I think I look at, that's one of the reasons, here we sell more confirmed ET pregnancies than anything else. It's our number one most popular thing we sell, and it's because embryo transfer is expensive, embryo transfer is difficult, and the biggest issue is if all the embryos stuck, it would be cheap. But when people buy a whole fleet of embryos and 15% stick, and now the other 85% are open cows, none of which are going to calve when you wanted them to, that's expensive.
Yeah. How long do you think it took you to feel like we were good at it? Like, good at embryo transfer? I mean, I'd say a minimum of 3 years, but you had years before that.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, and we were doing it at large scale. We're doing it on all the cows we own.
Right.
And it still took us at least 4 years probably.
Yeah.
Lots of trials, lots of money that would just wasted on embryos that didn't stick for us.
Oh yeah.
And we're as good as anybody out there doing it.
Yeah. No, yeah, we are. Yeah. And at this point, when you look at it, 3 to 5 years, 3 to 5 years of a pile of expenses and not that much to show for it. And
these guys that want to jump into it, I'm like, well, buckle up, because it's so fickle and specific. If you're not doing everything just so, it's not gonna work out super well for you, and these guys have high expectations for it to work out good. And then they face a lot of disappointment, a lot of losses, like we did. We had to learn the lessons the hard way, and you've been learning as much as you possibly can from everyone else out there doing it. So we were able. I feel like we fast tracked getting good at it.
Right.
Most people probably aren't going to be able to get that good that fast.
Right. And definitely, I think as I look at it, for what we've done, as much as anything, just being willing to learn and being willing to adapt. And that's part of the impetus behind this podcast would be, I've had so many people be willing to share, one little lesson here, one little lesson there, something they've learned, another take on things. And then I've been the beneficiary of that, talking to those people or reading what they've written or watching their videos or whatever else. And so my thought would be, anything that we share, whether it's in this episode or any that came before or any that'll come after, any of these little things that we can share, if they can be of value to anybody, and add one thing that somebody can do better, then they're worth doing. And, and that's part of what I hope too, as well, is that not only can people, I guess, learn what to do or the how-to aspect of it, but also just understand, I guess, who we are or get a feeling for, who these people are, what they do, a little bit of a background on it. And I look at, when we started initially, you and I would have both just run like commercial cows.
Yeah.
Then coming together, we basically ran the beginnings of an embryo transfer program per se. And then over the course of time from then till now, 5 different breeds. And, years of dialing in our grazing program, our bull leasing program, our embryo transfer program, our mineral program, our facilities, all those different things, to where today, the calf crop that'll hit the ground starting next month is 90% Akaushi.
Yeah.
And so I guess that'd maybe be one more thing that I guess I'll touch on, and not to get too terrible awful lengthy. And you've mentioned a few things with Akaushi, but, definitely a common question that I get, and one that we'll probably dedicate an episode to at some point would be, what an Akaushi is or why anybody should care. But in its, I'm going to try to give, I guess, a relatively brief synopsis on it, and we can do a deeper dive at another point in time. But the Akaushi cattle are going to marble above and beyond what an Angus can do, but they're going to gain at a rhythm above and beyond what a black Wagyu can do. And I think one of the real light bulb moments for us, when we brought them in, they were meant strictly as a terminal cross. They were meant to be a high marbling, make a great beef. Like, that was the point. This is you're going to kill these animals and eat them. And what we realized was that these cattle are excellent from a fertility standpoint. They're excellent from a structure standpoint. They're excellent from a longevity standpoint. So when we look at some of these things that are becoming chronic issues in just the commercial cattle world, like regardless of breed right now, there's some really serious issues with foot quality. And if a cow won't stay sound, she won't breed. And if she won't breed, she doesn't bring in a calf. She doesn't bring in a calf. She's gone. And it's awfully expensive to be replacing cows when they're only 3, 4, 5 years old.
Yeah.
They've got to stay sound. And so that's one of the things we've seen in Akaushi. We've got a series of cows that are in their teens and are perfect footed. Yeah. Ramrod straight toes, deep heels. These are animals that'll last, and they're structurally correct. And they've weaned a calf every year. Yeah. They've bred tight, and they're not monstrously large. We've had some animals in other breeds that we can't get them through the chute because they're so big.
Yeah, way too big.
And these Akaushi cows, there's some of them that are 1,000-pound sopping wet. And so if you can reduce some mature size and reduce that feed bill we were talking about.
Yep. So
if we can have less of a feed bill, less replacement cost because these cattle are staying sound and they're breeding better, and we're doing those things that in the Angus world, the term that would be used is maternal versus terminal. It's 2 camps that just hate each other.
Yep.
And the maternal side says, well, we need cows that work, but the terminal side says, well, but we need beef that sells. And that's what's so exciting to me with Akaushi. They're saying, look, these cows legitimately work, and they've worked in tough settings. They work in New Mexico desert, Texas desert, wherever they need to be, and they will hang a carcass that's as good as any. We made the mistake of putting one in our freezer one time, and there's no going back. It
wasn't a mistake.
I'm a beef. I'm a beef
great
snob now. Yeah, it's fantastic, and it's so good. And so anyway, so we'll do kind of a full episode at some point. A little more in depth on that.
And it was so good without grain.
We
didn't
finish
it.
We did it without
just
grain.
a cow we killed.
And
it was amazing. And it's just like you can't go to a restaurant now.
No,
steak.
Completely spoiled. Absolutely a beef snob at this point. Yeah. But anyway, so that's something that I think, we'll definitely need to do kind of a more in-depth, dive on Akaushi. But I guess that'd be another big thing learned, if I was going to try to maybe summarize some of the last 6 years and how we went from everything's on fire to only some things are on fire on occasion, has been learning embryos, learning breeds, and and then all of the finer points of the marketing on my end, the finer points of the production on your end, but embryo transfer, bull leasing, and the Akaushi breed, I'd say would definitely be some pillars. But anything else that you want to throw in there in particular?
No, I think I think that was pretty good for that episode. I feel like we got to keep them wanting more.
Yeah,
keep people coming back. So
well, hey, here's what I need you guys to do. So this has been the Got Any Cows podcast. Go to gotanycows.com and you can subscribe, rate, and review on whatever platform you've listened to here. But appreciate all of you guys joining us to listen. Hopefully there's been something of value to you here. Subscribe, rate, and review, and visit gotanycows.com.